Today we made a bass, and I know I feel a weight of I'm not actually making music, I'm just tinkering with sounds, and that feels unproductive. But I keep having to remind myself that no, this is a big part of the process of becoming a better EDM producer is learning how to use your tools. And if I want to make the music I hear in my head, I need to learn how to use Serum. This actually started from a point of working on the Radiohead drum and bass track here, as you can see up there on the header there. And this sound popped into my head as I was listening through the beginning. And you have this sort of washy there's notably nothing happening in the bass in that area. I like the rest of the soundscape. I think it's a cool soundscape, but there's nothing happening in the bass. So I was like, okay, a bass here would be kind of cool. What sort of bass sound would be good? And in my head, I heard this sort of like vocally like whop sort of sound. Not like a whop sound, but like that sort of like sound, but sustained, like wah. Like I don't know. Like it's hard for me to vocally replicate the sound in my head. It's a very there's a lot of space between each of the kind of like peaks and troughs of the sound wave, but the sound was in my head, and I wanted to make that sound, and so I sat down to try and make that sound. I didn't quite make that sound. I made a different sound, though, that has a lot of things that I like about it. This guy here, you can kind of hear the peaks and troughs thing I was talking about a little bit. It's fun. It's got a lot of detail to it, and we're doing some things here in Serum that I've never done before. Watching a Virtual Riot video where he was working on some sounds. He was using the chaos knobs over here in the global. I'd always wondered, what do these chaos knobs do? I don't really. It wasn't intuitive to me what these were. And funnily enough, if you're a Vital user, you'll know one thing they've got is their kind of like random LFO section, where it's just a thing that you can kind of like set to generate a random value, and there's a bunch of ways you can fine tune it. And I always felt like, it's weird that Serum doesn't have like a random value generator. It does, though. Actually, it has two of them. These chaos knobs. These are sort of like LFOs. Just weirdly, they're not placed in this section here. So, which are kind of the generate a thing that controls another thing section of Serum. So it's not the sort of thing you would notice right off the bat, but these chaos knobs are exactly what I was looking for. And you obviously you can't drag this knob onto an LFO or an LFO onto this knob. This doesn't make sense. And if I want to drag this knob onto an effector or an oscillator, it's on the wrong panel. So what do? You go to the matrix here, and the matrix obviously has all the normal. When I drag an LFO onto something, it shows up here in the matrix. So when I put LFO2 on the filter's frequency, it put it up here in the matrix. And so you just select the chaos as one of these sources here, and then you select where you want it to control. And so I have Chaos 1 here controlling the filter cutoff of this Phaser 36 plus filter shape we have, which is kind of the sound I think that I'm looking for with this vocal character on this bass is a band pass, kind of a notchy sort of filter, where it's we have one frequency sustaining, but then there's like we're kind of moving through like wow, kind of that sort of idea. And so as kind of a variation on that, this phaser, which has a few different notches, was a fun thing to play with. And there's a lot of shape that the sound gets by putting this cutoff, which moves kind of what frequency it's placed on with that first chaos knob here. It's just set to 0.2 hertz. So it's just moving around very slowly. And then we have the other chaos knob here. This one's set to a bit of a higher rate at 0.4 hertz. And this one is attached to the wavetable position of the first oscillator. So as I hold down a note, this is being moved around randomly. This is being moved around randomly. Now, I wanted this to like move around through a bunch of different sounds. And what was interesting with these chaos filters is if you watch the way it works here, it does sometimes just like snap to one frequency and stay there, especially on this one. Like you'll see it like move and stay places. Well, it was doing it more before I did this. If I turn this back off, yeah. So it's sliding around, but then it's kind of just like staying in one value for a long time. And I didn't like that. And I was confused that it wasn't just like continuously moving around. And so what I did to change that was I put this on asterisk inverse. Not sure what that means, but also LFO1. LFO1 is this sort of just random sort of shape I drew. And then basically this modifier modifies this value over here. The combination of the two gave us pretty smooth, like, random feeling, where it wasn't staying on one value for a long time, but it also wasn't changing at a regular interval. So this was just, those two combined created a nice variation. You can kind of see it moving around here. What feels chaotic, exactly what I was hoping for. We put this to 4 voices, and then we attached a few different things to this macro knob so that we could kind of find the right spot on the sound. We put the random of the phase position on what they start for oscillator A, the detune for oscillator A, which is technically 4 voices, but is by default all the way down, so it doesn't change the sound that much. And then also the hyper dimension mix over here, this knob. And when you turn this knob, you get some pretty different sounds. I found the sweet spot's kind of like in here somewhere. And then the main thing I think kind of like the other thing that's going on that's really making a big difference here, this guy also is just adding a little bit of extra details, just an extra filter. It's just taking some of the high end off and then bringing it back in. But the main thing is this compressor. If I turn this off, the sound is, A, it's quieter, but B, because we're going through so many kind of like different phasing, you're going to create superpositions that are going to make the waves louder and then quieter because there's so much kind of randomness in there. I felt like a really, really tight compressor was probably really important. And it's nice because it creates a lot of punchiness. We have the threshold set decently, like, in a sensitive area where it will actually be doing some compression, and then we have makeup gain as well. So you can see it's doing quite a bit there, especially with the attack and release set as aggressively as they are. I think that's a big part of why that has such a nice kind of like pop to it at the beginning of it. I messed around with noise, but ultimately didn't like it. Also messed around with not having the sub go direct out. I don't know, those are subtle differences, but they're definitely there. This is sort of what I would describe as a saturated bass. I don't know if that's the correct terminology. This is what, in my mind, the word that comes to mind to describe this sound. It is definitively not the sound I was looking for, but you can kind of get a basic idea of what I was thinking with kind of like, let's turn it down a little bit. Something kind of like that. I wanted it to be a little bit less. It's funny that the sound in my head, I think, is a lot of the details are very, very treble details. And again, the thing that was missing that we noticed in the span was the low end. And so the sound that I hear in my head, I don't think actually will actually fill in the space that I know is missing. So I don't know, but maybe just filling in like with like a very basic sub is probably actually the correct sound, like literally just a sine wave sub. Put that down here into that lower register where we got this empty space. Oh, something like that maybe, and then just. Yeah, something like that might be the correct answer there. So I don't know, continuing to learn how to make better basses. This is definitely a bass I don't think I could have made and have it be as alive and as interesting as it was even a month ago. So we're making progress, making steps forward to being a better EDM producer. Thank you guys so much for watching. That's all we have time for today. See you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.